have a 2010/2011 race quad. This was Dustin Wimmer's, bought directly from Dustin Wimmer. Back in 2014, I bought it in multiple pieces and assembled it myself. I'm going to do a quick overview of what the team did. Some stuff is not on this quad, so even though I may explain that it's a team part, it might not show on here. And the reason is, when the team dissolved in 2010, Dustin privateered with help from Suzuki on some parts through 2011's NE ATV series, where he ran the Pro-Am and the Pro class. So because some parts weren't sponsored, he chose to run different parts as a cost savings. He of course won both classes that year in 2011, so none of those things really affected his speed. He did compete against all the top names that year and beat them all out. This bike was torn down when the team was dissolved. They requested all the frames and all the engine cases that were serial numbered back. So Dustin had to tear all his bikes down, send back the frames, and send back the engines. And the engines were disassembled for the cases, and then the guts from those race engines were reassembled into other cases. So this engine was brand new back for this quad to be built. Dustin decided at that time in 2014 to sell most of his collection. I bought a large portion of it, including this bike here. Some parts are completely rebuilt, some parts were used and reused. So it's a mixture of basically a rebuild and new. I'll go over best I can with that. And again, some parts, due to the team being dissolved and him running his own and racing at the time in 2011, there's some discrepancies, mainly on all his quads, other than 3 of them that were pulled in 2008 and 2009. When he won the championship. There's a couple of those out there. So we're going to start here. This quad, they ran the DWT Rockouts. These Razor Cross tires, these were brand new, put on here. They also, in the front hubs, they ran the double outer bearing. Inside there's a spacer. That's typically steel. On a team quad, it's aluminum to save weight. These Nerf bars were specific to Dustin Wimmer. Of course, everybody ran them on the team, so Creamer ran them. They were wider. They came all the way out. They're more squared off. They do look like a Revolution, but they actually have no connection point at the frame. It's a Pro Peg setup, so the team welded a bar across. You can see it there. He also ran, the nets had extra connections. Up here on the inside, there's an additional connection. They had Amish people make these nets with the leather inserts. The peg was a little wider. They had custom machined billet mounts here instead of the steel ones. Get a better shot of these. Pro Armor obviously is no longer making ATV parts, but they sponsored the team back then. Since we're up here at the front, I'll point out some stuff right here. Notice the radiator has a brace welded to the side of it. Both sides have this brace. These were because Dustin was so tall and he'd lean over, he'd smash his knees into the radiators and break the radiators. The other thing is they use nutserts in the radiator. There's no plastic clip holding it. You can see that there, that gold ring. Of course, this bike's kickstart, so it does not have any of the battery box or anything on this side. And you can see it ran, the team ran all the stock fuel components. Stock fuel pump, stock fuel lines, stock fuel bowl, stock gas tank, stock throttle body, stock injector, A lot of stock parts. There was no fancy anything. They tried a different fuel line. It didn't work out. They went back to this. The only thing I made as a change on here, because this bike was mine and I had originally planned on using it, was, and you might be able to see, it has an aluminum fuel bowl. That stopped the excessive corrosion, which is known to happen in the fuel bowl. Yoshimura head, basically done by MPH, Molaska Pro heads. Team head had the intake buckets on a stock head are larger than the exhaust buckets, but in a team race head, both the intake buckets are used on the exhaust side as well. So it has larger buckets, oversized valves, all titanium. They mill the head and they mill the cylinder to get really high compression. They ran stock pistons that were fly cut, stock crank, stock rings. The factory had really good luck with these parts. They didn't have any issues. Some of the other changes were these motor mounts. They're modified because the head is actually cut and so is the cylinder. They moved the bowl holes where this bolts through on the back. I can't really show that with this with it in place, but that was good for 1 free horsepower. And Suzuki spent a lot of time with Yoshimura trying to figure out all the free horsepower. Of course, Yoshimura plugs. The cases in this engine are brand new. The engine inside is also functionally new. The head is used. According to the team manager, Kevin Muma, they only had 6 heads in rotation because the heads cost about $12,000 each. Might be able to verify with him. I believe that's what he told me when I was there. So they ran a rotation of 6 cylinder heads. They just would send them and freshen out after a certain amount of hours. So there isn't this large abundance of spare heads. Again, stock fuel pump. They didn't run the carbon fiber frame guards. Again, this was my own personal quad that I wanted to potentially ride, so I did put the frame guards in to protect the frame. It's just a bonus. It really wasn't a team item. They ran Renthal. Renthal sponsored them, so Renthal sprockets, non-O-ring chain, didn't need O-rings, motocross. This is a team airbox. It's drilled and race cut. So you can see they cut it down. It was a regular Fox podium rear. It has a custom bottom out cup that was designed for Dustin. Goes in the bottom, prevents bottoming out. Very plush. This one's got a fresh rebuild. Was back from Fox Racing. You can see the heat material they put on the airbox to try to keep the heat out of the airbox. Team ran stock air filters. They just greased the front of it. Yeah, I think they were replacing air filters so often that they didn't need to have some special air filter. The team also ran modified engine harnesses. These engine harnesses were 06 through 08. They did not run any 09 harnesses with the 09 ECUs. They only ran 06 to 08. So it has the regular map sensor, the regular temperature sensor. They did make billet plugs for the side for the crankcase vent. The crankcase vent does not go back into the intake, which, while we're talking about crankcase vents, the can is still there. Underneath the gas tank, it runs across, and I don't know if we can see it in there, but there's a large port aluminum block off where the starter went. I can't get it to focus there. There's the large port aluminum block off plate. So it vents back into the crankcase. These ran such high compression that this is how they vented the crankcase, so it didn't have crankcase pressure. They ran stock clutch plates, stock springs, Basically all stock clutches. Again, they could switch them so often that it really wasn't an issue. Dustin said he tried slipper clutches and he tried regular. He preferred the regular. Of course, this one's Kickstart, Yoshimura Kickstart kit. Also, the factory racing titanium header. You can tell where the step is up here. They ran safety wires so it couldn't back out. Back here, the mid pipe had an extra bracket so it wouldn't crack. That also had a titanium bolt that was ran through, held it, and also held that bracket from the other side. You can tell titanium exhaust by the mounts. They're riveted to the can. On aluminum cans, they're welded. It's a dead giveaway. The race, because they had noise, they had to have certain noise regulations. These cans are really, really long. Some were big bore. They had tried different methods. This is a regular race can. Back here, this bike has a stock swing arm. In 2011, when he ran any ATV, he said the stock swing arm worked perfect. So he ran it for his own race program. At that time, Suzuki wasn't paying for him. So he had good results with it. Won that year. So this is a brand new swing arm specifically on this quad. The factory welded the emergency brake on the rear calipers and then milled it off. And this was considered a lightened rear caliper. They ran golfer rear rotors, golfer rear brake lines with the heatsink in them, Dominator 2 rear axles. The rest of the parts were factory. Again, they really didn't have any failures with these. They worked perfect. Now the team would have had titanium rear hubs, but they cracked, and so they had many sets, the team did. So obviously when you're racing on your own program and they really were only good for a few ounces, these steel ones work perfect. Factory rear grab bar, factory under plastics, intake boot, throttle body, all that's brand new on this quad. Factory rear brake pads. Now Quadtech sponsored them, so factory it had the team skid plate, the rear front skid plate, the front electronics guard. Also, Quadtech was involved in making the seat, which I don't have on this right now. Some of the team specific parts would have been, this is a block off where the fuel level went. They had those made, they put that in there. Factory fan, the CV4 yellow hoses. This has Yoshimura camshafts. There are a couple different grinds. Dustin says he likes the E's, so they're marked E. The intake cam's adjustable, which allows them to start easier. They also ran 3000s and 5000s on the valve clearance. Because they were adjusted and taken apart so much, they ran really tight valve clearances for horsepower. It's got the Yoshimura brake clevis. This is an 09 frame, so no hole here. Aluminum subframes, they didn't come in till I believe late 08. They had prototypes for a while, and then this is the factory that was offered in 2009. And of course, for the team, it was ran 09, 2010, 2011. The rear here, before we walk away from it, they machined the rear bearing carrier to lighten it. And then they ran a machined sleeve as well. They basically machined as much weight as they could off the rear carrier before they put it in there to save weight. The reason that Dustin did not run the JB rear swing arm in 2011 is they were cracked. They cracked a lot. That's an issue with a lot of these aftermarket swing arms made out of chromoly. The welds crack, and so you have to constantly replace them. They do save weight, but they are more brittle. Okay. The Pro-Am style front bumper ran through the team. Precision Pro steering stabilizer. JB steering stem. The team ran titanium steering stem. This quad did not get a titanium steering stem, again, because to bend a $1,500 steering stem if there was any issue would be crazy. Now, Dustin ran +1 Ford stock height steering stem. This one is straight. It doesn't have +1. Fox Gen 2 floats in the front. They're marked for his for him. They say 191 on them. He had multiple sets in rotation. Of course, they were rebuilt. This set has got a fresh rebuild. These are the Pro arms with the large heim joints up and bottom and top. This is how they set it. They put the spacers in. Might help somebody set theirs up. Had custom golfer front lines with stiffeners in them. This is the set that came with this quad, so the rubber's starting to show a little bit of its age. Doesn't affect the line. So for the kickstart on the Yoshimura kit sold to most people, they had the capacitor mounted here on the side by the engine. On this, they welded it up front. So there's the capacitor, factory rectifier. You can see how they made their harness. All the grounds go there. This is a Team ECU. You can tell by that port right there on the ECU. These are extremely rare. Achirby's sponsored them. The only difference was they had billet mounts made instead of the plastic ones. You can see these custom billet mounts that were the team used, that Dustin used. There's one on this side. This set of handlebars, this is a used set that Dustin raced in the ATV series. These are the grips that he used. Factory master cylinder, factory brakes, factory clutch cables. None of that stuff had issues, so why replace it? Some of the things that aren't on this quad that would be also on a team quad would have been the titanium hubs I mentioned. Some of the original 2000 early frames, you'll see a little tab here welded. That's where the fairing would have came back. You would have put a bolt. It would have had one of these Allens that held the flare, the little shroud on. This one didn't have that. They did weld in the Pro peg to be able to reuse the Nerf bars, the team Nerf bars. But this was more of a formality. I think, you know, some of the things that the team did was because they had an unlimited budget and they had guys working on it. So not a big deal to have it done. If there's things you think I missed, please comment down below and I'll get back to you. I'm just walking around here showing the quad again. See if there's anything I can think of I missed. Inside does have a Hinson clutch basket, pressure plate. So it does have Hinson parts inside. One of the things I forgot to mention is they drilled holes in the bracket, the team did, to lighten the rear caliper bracket. They used these plastic clips to hold the brake line. That was on all of them. Factory fuel pressure regulator. This one has all brand new. You can see brand new throttle body, brand new fuel pressure regulator. It's a brand new fuel pump. They ran 10W40 motor oil. Motor Rex made it. Moto Rex maybe. It was a semi-synthetic. It wasn't a full synthetic. They had good luck with it. It was great oil. JB arms. Again, these are the race version with the large heims. Plus ½ inch on both sides. DWT mud plugs, wheels and tires on here. The wheels and the tires are all brand new, never used. This quad approximately has 5 or 6 minutes runtime total on it. Maybe a little bit more than that. The last time I started it was, I believe, in early 2015. I'd have to go back. I know I posted the video in February 2015. That video has quite a few views. One of the things I'll point out is in that video I had Doug Gust plastics. The red plastics that were on it were from one race at Redbud where Dustin and Gust ran red, and that was the only time professionally Suzuki ever ran red plastics. Those plastics were authentic from that race that I bought directly from Kevin Muma. I had a person reach out after that and purchase those red plastics, so they're gone. The Dustin Wimmer plastics is what's going on this to be sold. Just keep looking at it. So soon this will have all its plastics put back on it. One last thing I guess I'll point out is maybe through this video people have seen this red plug. So in that video I kicked it a lot, and that's because everything was new. You can't fill the fuel pump. There's no way to really pour fuel to prime the system to build pressure. This is a power plug. Not only does this assist in priming the fuel pressure, what the race team did was they would plug power. They had little battery packs that they would plug in. And what that would do at a race is it would acclimate the ECU to the current outside pressure and temperature so that the bike was ready to go to race. You see, it has a map sensor and a temperature sensor, and it needs those two values to build its race map. And that's how the team would do it, because if you went to the starting line, started it, it wouldn't be ready to go. It would obviously know the outside temperature and the map pressure at that moment, but they wanted it to be ready inside the ECU for all its values. So that's what that was for. And in that video I kicked it a lot before I ever put power to this plug, and as soon as I put power to this plug, you'll notice it starts pretty quickly. Again, they only ran 06 to 08 ECUs. Only 06 to 08 harnesses. They never were able to get the 09 ECU setup to work well. The other thing I guess I'll note is the team only ran 06, 07 transmissions. They never used the 08 to 09 transmissions. They ISF coded everything inside the transmission. All the gears are ISF coded. And then of course there's no key. The only way to turn it off and turn it on is from the kill switch. They ran the factory cap. That vent is not, I put that on there. And then the plastic vents for the radiator, the mud guards, these were off of a competitor's dirt bike. So it was kept close to the chest, which dirt bike these came off of, because they weren't off of Suzuki. But they fit pretty good. They had to cut the tops, they had to cut the bottoms, and then they had to obviously make them work by screwing them on. Yoshimura did sell their own version. Honestly, it wasn't that nice. Did not look good. All right. Again, comment down below if there's any questions. I've owned many of these. This one's leaving, going to a new home. Thanks for watching. All right, this thing's been sitting for many years without trying to be started. Just for shits and giggles, I'm just gonna try kicking it. Now, the last video I uploaded with this was a long time ago. It had red plastics on it at the time. Right now it has its Dustin Wimmer plastics. This is a team bike direct from Dustin. Someone's coming to buy it. I'm going to have to switch the plastics to the number 1 plastics. No big deal. But going to see if she starts. It was stored with race fuel in it, so it shouldn't be an issue. See what happens.